listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
This is Kevin Randall. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com.
The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Gwilda Wiyaka's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the Science of Magic or endorsed in any manner by Gwilda Wiyaka, Relmar McConnell Media Company, its affiliated networks, stations, or employees. Welcome to the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, a program dedicated to uncovering the unified nature of reality and humanity's ever-evolving place as truly galactic beings. For more information on the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit us online at www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Welcome to the Science of Magic, a place where science and magic come together to transform fact into evolving truth. We're coming to you through the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net, and can be also found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. This hour we'll be exploring gate masters. First, you must hold the universe in your heart, Wiyaka, then sing and drum from there. Do it right, and you master gates. Do it wrong, and if you're very lucky, you're just making noise. Over the years since my old teacher tried to instruct me on sacred song, I've had the misfortune of experiencing the alternative he was talking about. I'm one of those people that like all kinds of music, yet I've really come to appreciate that it's not so much the music, but the focus and intent of the performer. This is the deciding factor between sacred song, simple entertainment, and something much more sinister. Good music of any genre performed from the heart is a powerful transforming agent. Even the most excellent music, when coming from ego, is hollow and shallow, the noise my teacher spoke of. Some music is performed with agenda to appropriate energy and attention or to control. Now that can be some nasty business. Music is frequency. Frequency dictates realities. When a congregation sings with gratitude and worship, it doesn't matter whether it's a traditional hymn or rock and roll, the reality of the divine is accessed. When an artist sings a love song from the heart, love is channeled in the room and hearts open. When the frequency of rage and hatred is expressed through music, that's the reality which manifests, darkening the hearts and souls of all present. This is the power behind war chants, inflammatory slogans, and mob mentality. As a young woman, though I loved rock and roll, if I was at a concert where participants were stoned on stimulants and the music angry, I'd have to leave or become very ill. On the other hand, I attended a concert for New Age music, most of which was beautifully performed and very uplifting. Then a group came on the stage wearing white turbans and drapey white cotton clothing. They sat in a circle facing each other, totally ignoring the audience, and played Tibetan bowls and chimes while they performed a very harmonious, complex, and precise chant. The sound was pleasant enough, but that, I discovered, can be very deceiving. During their performance, I became aware of gateways opening in the room, and what was on the other side was nothing nice. I could see a too bright halogen light and feel a cold, calculating presence. Upon closer observation, it became obvious the performers were not in their hearts at all, but rather in their heads and egos. Once they were done performing, they gathered in the back of the concert hall, still in full regalia, and talked loudly among themselves while others were on the stage trying to perform. The nasty gateways remained around them. Everyone seated in their vicinity seemed to be agitated and unable to focus on the other performers. It was as if a black hole sucked all the attention in the room, shattering the harmonious energy and disempowering those on stage. Even the musicians performing began to falter. The next set started with the beturbaned group still holding court in the back of the room, and I began to despair. Suddenly, the most amazing sound rent the air. A single native flute playing a note so pure it pierced the environment, cutting through the disturbance. It was like hearing truth in a room filled with lies. One could not help but pay attention. As the flautist's simple composition continued to develop, profound heart energy filled the concert hall. The nasty gateways slammed shut. The inconsiderate group thankfully shut up and left. Our guest this hour is Douglas Bluefeather, whose ancestry includes American Indian, Iberian, and European. He's an internationally known recording artist and performer of music featuring the Native American Flute. Douglas' latest CD is entitled Cosmic Visions. A talented Native American flautist, Douglas has released 18 CDs heard on radio and TV music channels worldwide, including iTunes, Pandora, and NativeRadio.com. Doug's multinational awards include Best Native American Flute and Best Contemporary Instrumental from the Indian Summer Music Awards, Flutist of the Year and Best New Age CD from Native American Music Awards, and Best New Age CD from the Culinary Vision of Resources. After this commercial break, I'll introduce Douglas, and together we'll examine sacred music, gate mastery through sound, and Native American flute, so don't go away. You're listening to The Science of Magic. Prior innovative episodes can always be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold. Linnea Starr began to demonstrate a metaphysical connection to the spirit world as a little girl. Her family noticed the connection, but it was a great-grandmother who told the family that Linnea was indeed gifted. The great-grandmother, who was also gifted, felt that Linnea had indeed inherited these attributes. It has been noticed that oftentimes such things are passed down through the generations. Linnea was also born with a caul, a thin white membrane across a newborn's face. Legend has it that if the baby is born with this caul, the child will have second sight, or what we call psychic abilities. Linnea Starr does past, present, and future, and has the gift of prophecy. It is written within scriptures that if you are able to give factual information and prophecies indeed come true, the gift indeed comes from the divine realm. Linnea Starr does large interactive groups as well as private gatherings. For more information on Linnea Starr or to contact Linnea for a one-on-one consultation, visit her website at www.linneastar.com. That's www.linneastar.com.
Welcome back. This is the Science of Magic, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is Native American flautist and recording artist Douglas Bluefeather. Douglas' latest CD is entitled Cosmic Visions. His website, www.douglasbluefeather.com. Douglas, thanks for joining us on the Science of Magic.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show.
Why don't we start out with what do you know about the Native American flute? Where did it come from?
Well, from what I have read and been told, the Native American flute is an ancient instrument. It can be traced back over 2,000 years from the images that you can still find in the American Southwest, the images of Kokopelli. And so we believe that its origin does come from Turtle Island, the U.S. Every culture on the planet has had some type of flute, be it a bone flute or a wood flute or metal flute. It's one of those instruments that, as I mentioned, every culture has had. When you think of what instruments are indigenous to the Native American culture, you probably first of all think of the mother drum and the singers like you would see at a powwow, or the hand drum and those songs that are sung at ceremony or at social events, and the other instrument being the Native American flute. A long time ago, when the flute first came into being, it was considered an instrument that a young man might play to attract the attention of a young lady. It was a courting instrument, not really considered a ceremonial instrument like the mother drum. And back in those days, there was no such thing as a flute being tuned to a specific particular key or even being in tune at all. That information had not been introduced yet. It was unknown that those kinds of scales or different keys of an instrument even existed until the Europeans came and introduced different types of scales, and once that happened, the native flute started to become more of a contemporary instrument as it is today.
What were they originally made out of, Douglas?
Well, originally, I have not seen, and I'm sure that they exist somewhere, probably in the Smithsonian. I've personally never seen a really ancient flute, but I can tell you the most popular wood that has always been used is some type of cedar, eastern aromatic cedar or western cedar. Today flute makers have experimented with a lot of different kinds of wood, like maple, walnut, a variety of different textures that are produced by different woods, but cedar has always produced the nicest, warmest, mellowest tone for the flute. Back then there were no modern tools as flute makers use today, like a lathe to create an entirely round chamber or a round flute. So back then everything was done by hand, carved by bone knives and things. So however it came out is how it came out. There was no such thing, as I mentioned, as it's going to be tuned to a specific key. So I have heard some flutes that are tuned that way, and they're different to play because the tuning is not what you're familiar with, with the modern flute.
So each had its own character, and you had to learn to work within that?
Yep, I would imagine that's the way it worked. And if I were to speculate and imagine what it was like back then, I wouldn't think that someone would be making a variety of different lengths or trying to produce different keys of the flute. Being at a modern instrument, the bigger the flute, the deeper the tone, the more ghost-like haunting sound that it produces. The smaller the flute, the higher pitched it sounds. Back in those times, 2,000 years ago, or even 200-300 years ago, I would imagine that a person making a flute might have only had one or maybe had two, and didn't have 20, 30, 50 flutes in their collection that produce different keys and different tones and different frequencies.
Got it. So when did you start playing the flute, and what drew you to that particular instrument?
Well, I have been playing almost 20 years now. And back in the 90s, mid-90s, I had a very profound spiritual awakening. A lot of things, if you look back in the mid-90s, I think a lot of people started to have some type of spiritual experience, some type of awakening. If you listen to people like Greg Braden, he talks about a lot of things astrologically that happened in the 90s, and I believe it's when we started to pass through the photon belt, that big belt of energy that only comes around about every 10,000 years or so. And that's when I had a profound awakening spiritually. It was because of that awakening that I was really drawn to my Native American heritage. I remember the day when I was 5 years old, growing up in Akron, Ohio. I did not grow up on a reservation, but I was told from that day, I remember my mother said, you have Indian blood, you have Cherokee heritage. So I grew up always kind of attracted to that. When we would travel, I would be attracted to standing in front of a teepee or a statue of a Native American someplace. And I was always attracted to that. So after that spiritual awakening I had in the mid-90s, it's around 96, I became interested in the music of the Native American culture because I had always been a musician myself. I started playing the drums and the drum set when I was about 14. So I remember the day when I was in this little world music shop over in Yellow Springs, Ohio. It's a small town where Antioch University is. A lot of people say it's like an old hippie town. A lot of little progressive shops over there, a lot of nice things. And I remember going into this store and seeing that wooden instrument. Didn't know what it was at the time, and it was called a Native American Flute. By the little sign that was there. And I asked the owner. I said, "What does that sound like?" And he played it, and like just about everybody who's ever heard one, the first time it just hit me right in the heart, and I was immediately attracted to it. So I bought my first flute there. It came with about a 2-page instructional pamphlet that showed you the basic fingering patterns, and from there, being a musician, I kind of had an ear for what sounded good and how to approach an instrument. Even though it was the first instrument I'd ever played where you could actually play a melody on. Being a drummer, you play rhythms, not melodies. So
right, exactly.
I started listening to some other CDs, researching and looking for other CDs that featured the Native American flutes. Got some of those, listened to how that performer would approach the instrument, how they would play it, how they would phrase their notes, and how they would use it not only in more of a traditional solo way, but how they would use it in more of a contemporary way when it was used with other instruments. And as I mentioned, in it being tuned to different keys, when I would start to listen to some of those different contemporary songs, I had one flute then. It was tuned to a key of G. And I would listen to some of those songs, and I would wonder, where are they getting those notes? Because I can't find them on this flute. Being unaware that it had become a modern instrument, and I needed a flute in a different key to play along with that particular song on the CD. So, I was completely new and uneducated to the instrument at that time. But, one thing led to another. And within a year and a half after buying my first flute, I had my first CD out called Seventh Fire.
That's amazing.
I started playing the flute in nursing homes and in hospice of Dayton, and people loved it. They'd never heard anything like that. And not long after doing some performances at hospice in Dayton, I remember the lady that I was working with there said, "Do you have any tapes out?" Well, back then we were still listening to some cassette tapes, and ours were still producing cassette tapes. And I said, "No, but that put the light bulb." That planted the seed, so to speak. And being a musician, I had the basic knowledge of how to start to write some songs, with a certain structure, with a little bit of an intro and a verse and a verse and a chorus, so to speak, kind of a format. So being a drummer, I put down some drum tracks and put down a melody, and then I called on some of my old former bandmates to help me out and fill in, the rest of it with some nice melodic chord structures and things like that. So
it's amazing what you developed out of that. As I hear you talking, Douglas, you say the flute started out as a courtship instrument. That's a heart issue, right? And so do you see that it really touches people's heart? You mentioned that. Is that what you see the effect it has on people?
Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, the native flute is called a heart instrument. You basically play, and myself included, and probably every flutist out there, we're basically playing up and down a scale of 6 notes. I like to add a couple of different notes that go above and beyond the highest note of the basic scale, so to speak. You can play 14, 15 notes on the flute altogether. I very rarely play all of those notes all at the same time, but the basic scale on a Native American flute consists of 6 basic notes, starting from the bottom lowest note when all the holes are covered, going up to the top one. So that doesn't require really any musical training or any musical background.
Easy for you to say. I've tried to play the thing, and all I can do is make a squawk.
Well, if I sat down with you in 10 minutes, I could show you the basics. I've taught thousands of people over the years how to play the flute, and seriously, within a 2-hour lesson, which consists of about an hour of me talking and explaining certain things, people really grasp the basic idea very quickly, because you do not need to read music. You don't sit there and read music from a sheet in front of you. That I respect musicians that play like that, because they can play extremely intricate passages. If you think how an orchestra plays, all those things, but that's all coming from the head.
Exactly.
Those people couldn't sit there and play that unless they had the sheet music in front of them.
The sheet right in front of them. You know, we're going to have to take a break, Douglas. On the flip side of this break, I'd love to come back and talk about playing music from the heart. Douglas and I will return to our discussion after this short break. You're listening to The Science of Magic on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. You can always find us on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. We will be back, so don't you go away.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school, training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
This is Kevin Randall. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com.
Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, a place where magic and science come together to promote enlightenment. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is Native American flautist and recording artist Douglas Bluefeather. Douglas' latest CD is entitled Cosmic Visions. His website, www.douglasbluefeather.com. Doug, we were going to talk about the difference between playing, music from sheet music and an orchestra playing together and just picking up an instrument and playing from the heart. Can you go into that a little bit for us?
Yeah, we had just been talking about the Native American flute being referred to as a heart instrument because you do not need to have any musical training, any musical background, even though I have a musical background and I played in rock bands for about 15 years touring the country back in the 70s and early 80s. I've never read music, and you don't need to read or understand sheet music to play the Native American flute. That kind of sheet music is out there available if you want to explore different songs and be able to learn that way. But when I teach people to play the Native American flute, and I would say when anybody teaches a student, if they're some type of instructor of the native flute, the goal is to just be able to close your eyes and, as we say, play from the heart, just up and down, back and forth between 6 basic notes. And as I mentioned, I like to add a couple of other notes in there just to expand the abilities of the flute. But everything in nature, everything in the universe vibrates at a frequency. The stones vibrate at a frequency, the trees, the plants, Mother Earth, everything vibrates at a frequency. Some vibrate at a higher frequency, some at a lower frequency. There is just something, and I always say this to people when I teach it, there's something magical about the Native American flute. It's something you really can't explain. It's just something that you have to experience. It touches people in the heart, especially the deeper the tones, the bigger flutes, the bass flutes. They just go right to the heart chakra.
When I first heard you playing at the Star Knowledge Conference in 2012, I could actually see sacred pathways to other dimensions opening in the room, and I could feel the heart energy. Are you aware that this happens when you play? And if so, what do you have to say about that?
Well, I'm aware of it happening because of other people telling me that. When I'm up there performing, I wear what we call in-ear monitors. Mm-hmm. So I don't have a floor monitor in front of me, putting the sound back to me that way. I listen to it as you would listen to something in headphones. So when I play, I pretty much all the time have my eyes closed, and I am just in what you would say my own little world. Mm-hmm. For me, the Native American flute is a very spiritual instrument. It's a very healing instrument for people who listen to it, but it's also a very healing instrument for me when I play it. So, when I go out there, I don't go out there, as you said, with ego or with any intention. I just go out there and I just play. And it never comes out the same way twice. When I'm, as I said, playing from the heart, even if I have songs that follow a certain chord structure, like the majority of the songs on the new CD, Cosmic Visions, I'm just kind of dancing around the chord changes. So I don't have a to stick to. There are a couple of songs on that CD and some songs on several other CDs that do have a specific melody that I have to stick to, and even though it has a specific melody like a pop song on a radio, I never exactly play that the same. So I'm always playing from the heart, always approaching it that way. And I've had so many people say that they see those doorways or they see a stage full of animals. They see buffalo. They see other natives dancing there. And as I mentioned, when I'm playing, I have my eyes closed a lot of the time. So I'm just, I guess, aware that those things are around. I've never felt any bad energy around. You mentioned experiencing that with a different performer that you saw with the group, but I've never experienced that when I've played any place. It doesn't attract that kind of energy, and the flute, if you approach it in a good sacred way, if you approach it in a spiritual way without ego, you create that sacred space. And I would imagine there are some players out there, and I know a few who really take it from egos, and I would imagine they're not creating that same type of vibration. They're just creating, even though they're good players, they're probably creating a little bit more of an empty sound and empty space.
Absolutely.
But when you take it and you play from the heart, it's you never know what kind of wonderful things are going to happen.
So could you share with us how your spiritual path influenced your music?
Well, because of that profound awakening I had, and when the lights came on, it's like everything started to happen just, almost on a daily basis. I would see things. I started to have visions. I had a vision of, and I'll share how I got my name Blue Feather. I had this very vivid vision one day. I met my first spirit guide. His name was One with Wings. Came to me, and he was a native man on a horse, and he almost had a bluish skin, kind of like the people, if you remember, in Avatar. And he had two long blue feathers hanging from his hair, and he took one and handed it to me and said, "This is from the wings of Mother Earth, the blue planet, and your name will be Blue Feather." And that was before I even started to play the flute. So I had that name before I even, as I mentioned, bought my first flute in Yellow Springs, Ohio, before I even picked it up, before I even know it existed. So I had that name. And so when I started to play out in those nursing homes and hospice, and when I started to record and release my first CD back in '97, I used that name, added to my birth name, Douglas. My birth name is Douglas Bonnell.
Okay.
So my recording name is Douglas Blue Feather.
Oh, perfect. Doug, my first Lakota teacher told me if I did nothing more than build drums and attune them to people's birth chords, I could make all the difference in future generations. How do you see your performances and recordings with the flute in this light?
Well, the flute produces a different vibration than the drum. I've seen at different expos people use the drum and how they can do a healing session with the drum because of the vibration it produces. Probably one of the most rewarding things that I've had over the years is not how many awards I've won, or over 50 nominations for various music awards. Probably the most rewarding thing has been receiving just hundreds of emails over the years of how people said when they were at a low point in their life, how the music got them through that, or they were going through a serious illness, serious health issues, and my music helped them to get through that, helped them to do some healing. So, everybody has a type of music that they love. I can't imagine a world without music. So music is one of the most powerful medicines that we have. And there are so many genres of music out there. As you mentioned, there's a lot of dark music out there. I can't imagine people are using that in any type of healing capacity.
No, probably not.
Yeah. But I personally like to listen to a lot of instrumental keyboard music, what you would call new age music. I just saw Yanni in concert a couple of weeks ago.
Nice.
I love that style of music.
Yeah.
Everybody has something that they're drawn to, and the flute probably for the last, I've seen it just explode the last 20 years that I've been playing. There are so many performers, so many flute makers out there, and it's, just not me. There's just hundreds of people who have made a difference, in helping people and impacting, to create a higher vibration to help not only the people, but to help the planet.
That's so hugely important. I know that, again, my Lakota teacher taught me that once you've made a sound, you can't unmake it. So
Right.
You have to be so mindful of your words and even your thoughts, which are a sound. So it also stands to reason that if you make a beautiful note coming from your heart and sound it into the world, it goes on forever. Is that kind of what we're looking at here?
Yeah, everything is done with intention. So if you set the intention that you want to create good vibrations, that's what you're going to create. And you do send that vibration out to the four corners, out to the doorways, out to the doorkeepers. And you send that up to Father Sky, you send it to Mother Earth, you send it to God, you send it everywhere that you want to help. You call on your guides, your angels, whatever you want to call them. They're all the same. You call on them to help you to do that. When I am getting into my, I guess, recording mode, so to speak, I tend to do that kind of over the winter months when I'm not doing so much traveling. When I'm recording there, I remember times when I've smelled roses.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember a time when I've smelled the smoke of the sacred chanupa.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that even when I'm there by myself recording, that it's attracting, the spirit world. I was actually in a ceremony one time, a Uweepi ceremony, very powerful Lakota ceremony. It was a healing ceremony, and the medicine man, once the spirits were called in, you can physically see them come in, bluish orbs floating around, and he said the spirits would like to hear a song on the flute. Mm-hmm. So and this was at our house, and I was downstairs in my studio, and I reached behind me in pitch black room and grabbed a flute and got to play a little bit of a melody for the spirits. So I will always remember that as probably being one of my favorite performances.
Oh, how fun is that? We're going to have to take another break. Douglas and I will be back on the flip side of this commercial break. You're listening to The Science of Magic on the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net, the place where altruistic professionals of science and the esoteric create common ground for the betterment of our world. You can always listen to previous transformative broadcasts at www.thescienceofmagic.net.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
If you enjoy reading a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love From Out of the Woodwork by William S. Peckham. Sean Kennedy, a Toronto contractor, buys derelict houses, guts them, and turns them into multi-family dwellings. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, a century house in ruins, and starts the renovation, the house fights back. He is visited by ghosts of owners past. His visions are triggered by touching an oak mantle, reading a faded letter, opening an old locket, or opening a brand new casket in the basement. These visions will take you on a trip across southern Ontario from Niagara Falls to Toronto to Kingston. From Out of the Woodwork is now available in paperback and on your favorite electronic reader. To order your copy of From Out of the Woodwork, go to www.williamspeckham.com. That's www.williamspeckham.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
This is Kevin Randall. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com.
Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, bringing together gifted people of service to the world. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is Native American flautist and recording artist Douglas Bluefeather. Doug's latest CD is entitled Cosmic Visions. His website, www.douglasbluefeather.com. Doug, let's talk about light in conjunction with music. You know, during that same concert that you were at, you were managing the sound and light for the other performers. And while I was performing, you used light extensively, and I could feel profound effect in the room. What do you think the effects of combining sound and light has on the listeners?
I think it adds to the overall energy of the room. It adds, to the music itself. It helps to create a higher vibration. Light. It's been scientifically proven that different spectrums of light can affect us in different ways. I've been at shows where they do some healing sessions with different types of light therapy. To me, it's part of the healing process itself to use lighting. So when I do concerts, I have my own portable light show, LED lights, and I can, when I'm performing, like I said, I have my eyes closed a lot of the time, but I can still see those the colors as they change coming through my closed eyelids, and it really puts me in a very sacred space. So I go to the extra mile of putting up some lights every time I do a concert, just to add to that healing process, just to add something to the audience out there. I'd love to have more lights, but I'm hauling around a lot of stuff as is. And I tell you, I've been doing this, like I said, for 20 years now, and hopefully I've got a few more years left in me. I don't do as much traveling as I used to. I'm 64 now, be 65 in January, and we're still out there, my wife and I, doing 30, 35 weekends out of the year, but we haven't been out in Colorado for 3 years. I'm out here now. So, I came out here just to do this interview.
Well, we're glad to have you in the Rocky Mountains here.
Yeah, hopefully I'll make it out here again to do some performances. It might be part of my farewell tour in a couple of years. We'll wait and see. But
well, we're not going to allow that, Doug. No farewell tours. We don't retire till we're 90, okay?
Well, I'll still keep performing music. Just like I said, might be cutting down on the amount of long-distance traveling that I do. It's hard.
It does. It gets hard on you. So, you and I had never worked together before that time, and yet the lighting that you use was just so synergistic with the music. Do you do that instinctively, or is it something you've learned?
It's just instinctively. It's just intuitive, yeah. I've got different lighting scenes programmed so that when I change from, one program to the next, they automatically go to a set program of lights that, different colors that work together well. I'm not what you would call an artist that's worked with colors and know what colors work, so I just do it intuitively when I go to program different scenes. And I think what I've got, does the job for the system it is.
Well, I'd say it does. You know what I've found is like, and of course this is some of my original teachers taught me this as well, is that life is changing all the time. And so if we can have learned all this stuff and learned all the principles, but then at some point we have to turn it over and just tune in to what's going on around us and respond accordingly. Have you found that with sound as well as light?
Yeah. There's a saying that comes from a Lakota person, Fool's Crow. He was one of the. He was actually the nephew of Black Elk. A lot of people have heard of Black Elk, and he was a very powerful medicine man. In his healings, he said, "You just have to be a hollow bone," meaning you just have to be open and receptive to let spirit work through you, because it's always spirit that does the healing. I'd like to think that when I'm playing or when I'm recording, that I just become a hollow bone for the music to flow through me, and just not try to force it, not try to think about what's coming next. You just have to let it flow.
Get the mind out of the way, huh?
Exactly, and just be in the heart moment. And if we could all stay in that heart moment throughout the whole day, especially when we have to deal with daily stress or daily conflicts that we do. If we could, all be more in that heart moment, we'd all do our part to help to make the world a better place.
Boy, no truer words were ever spoken. Now I'm going to put you on the spot, Douglas. What was your profession in your prior life?
And it does seem like a prior life. Up until the year 2000, I was a Dayton, Ohio police officer. I was in law enforcement for 15 years. I did retire on an on-duty disability from an on-duty injury. It was different being a police officer back when I was in the 80s and 90s than it is today. Everything we do today in law enforcement's under the microscope. But, to me, it's one of the best jobs that a person could ever have. It was one of the, other than being a musician and doing what I love to do and living the dream. Being a police officer was the best, what I would say, real job that I ever have. I always have those memories, and some of them, were a bit scary at times. But I did a lot of things when I was a police officer, including playing in the Dayton Police rock band. Yep.
How fun is that?
One of the assignments I did for a few years was work in the what's called the DARE unit, Drug Abuse Resistance Education. So I was a DARE officer working with 5th and 6th graders in public schools and some of the private schools around Dayton. And got to the point where we formed a rock band called Coppers. Our chief knew that Columbus, Ohio had a rock band called Hot Pursuit. And he got with somebody in the department and said, hey, do you know if we have any musicians within our department that we could do something similar? So we put that together. We actually had that band together for about 9 years.
Oh, that's amazing.
We played in all the public schools. We got to the point where we had a truck about 3/4 the size of a semi full of a huge light show, a huge PA system, and we were playing in arenas where they would bus in 8,000 kids. So
sounds like you just continued with what you were doing. You just aren't a knight in blue anymore, right?
Yep, that's right. Like I said, my first instrument was the drum set, so I was the drummer in the band. So
nice. Before we run out of time, I know you have a beautiful selection of Native American flutes on your website, and that would be www.douglasbluefeather.com. What other service do you offer?
Well, other than online sales, we, like I said, still do a lot of venues out there, 35 weekends out of the year. I do a variety of things. I'm a guest musician at a lot of Unity churches. I've been at several in the Denver area, Boulder, Colorado Springs in the past. When I do that, in addition to being the guest musician, I've been a guest speaker numerous times, and I've also done concerts at the churches. And what I've probably done most often is conduct a Learn How to Play the Native American Flute workshop.
Nice.
So I continue to do that. I've done drumming circles at a lot of churches. We do a lot of metaphysical expos throughout the year. Still do powwows. Not as many powwows as we used to do a year. We used to do about 14. Now it's down about 5 or 6 because a lot of them over the years have just gone under. They lost their funding, lost their sponsorship. Yeah. But I stay busy.
Can people find your schedule on your performances on your website as well?
Yep. There's a link at the top that says events or schedule, something like that. Just click on that. It'll take you to a month-by-month calendar.
Wonderful. Your latest CD is Cosmic Visions. Do you have any more new ones in the mill?
I've got another one. I released a CD with a wonderful guitarist, Danny Voris, back in around 2010, called Earth Songs. He and I have been working on another one, and it's been a work in progress. We started it a couple of years ago. We got back to it just earlier this year, and going to be getting back to it this fall. He's also a full-time musician, so coordinating schedules is doing that.
Always a challenge.
I think I'm about ready to do another more traditional solo style CD without the modern contemporary accompaniment. So
got it. Gosh, well, Douglas, time is flying, and we're about out of it. Would you please tell your beautiful wife I send my love?
I will do. Yeah.
And thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
This has been The Science of Magic. Remember, you can always listen to past thought-provoking episodes on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. Until next time, dear ones, may you be blessed with knowledge and comforted with love as all songs come from your heart.